Legends of old have spoken of this game. Somewhere deep in a cave on the walls is the prophecy of a football game so brilliant it would leave the world stunned. A game of punting so well executed, it isn't just a moment in history, but a signal of the end of times. Let me take you to the town of Bethlehem for tonight, the place you'd least expect something great. Thursday night football as Marshall takes on James Madison at home. And this would be a defensive feast, but what every great defense needs is a great punter to put them in position to set the pace of the game. And this is exactly what happens from the start. Let me introduce you to the main character, the messiah of this game, legendary punter Ryan Hanson. He comes out and turns water to wine. A beautiful punt where you definitely hear the Marshall offense whining after that one as it's down at the 1. But Marshall's punter is no such whiner. He embraces the backed up situation because for him, it's just more field to kick on as he blasts a punt way over the head of the returner who's failing to keep his feet, just trying to keep up with this mammoth of a punt as it takes a roll. And if it hadn't been for a gunner who thought that the returner had touched the ball, that punt would have kept going easily for 90 yards, but instead was stopped at just a whopping 74-yard punt. But let me get back to our main character, as Marshall's punter is just a side story. This amazing punt would not dissuade Ryan from enacting his plan of pain. He said, "There's only one way I like watching offenses, and that's when they're playing out of the back of their own end zones," as he blasts another punt, Dukes flying downfield, getting beneath it to start the thundering herd inside their own 1-yard line for a second time in a row. This would keep the herd at bay, and not too long later, the lead is still up for grabs by the herd, and they're calling out Boy Wonder. We've seen the water to wine, we've seen the blind man see, and it's time to take a trek out onto the lake, which is damn near what he does. The returner so scared to let that ball go over his head and let it bounce that he hauls backwards to catch the ball at the 5-yard line to just do some simple damage control for his offense, so maybe the quarterback wouldn't have to be having his heels in the end zone. And for the last time before the half, they trot him back out there to pin the returner at the 11, taking the fair catch just so that way he can start with a little bit of breathing room to save some face. But the second half would bring more gifts than the 3 wise men. As we cut back to the side story, the thundering herd takes their defense and special teams and says, "Fuck it, you guys have to do all the scoring this game." So their punter comes out and he rips a page out of Hanson's book, sending up a Hail Mary of a punt beautifully placed with a gaggle of herdmen sitting beneath it by the time it lands to pin them at the 1-yard line. They would then use this position to get a huge stop inside of the end zone for a safety, but then that's not all, because the herd would use this as a breath of life. A couple drives later, the James Madison's kicking off and the Marshall returnman would take it all the way back 95 yards to give Marshall a bit of life. Unfortunately, if Ryan were a god, it would be the god of death, as James Madison calls him out to close out the game. And as you see him come out with deadly poise, he makes another beautiful punt, pinning the Marshall's anemic offense inside the 1 for the 3rd time tonight. And not only that, drive number 2, he'd put another nail in their coffin, a missile that takes an unbelievable bounce inside the 5, where a desperate return man tries to field it, only getting back to the 10-yard line before being taken down. And lastly, the game approaching an end, and he does it again, end over end punt, picked up at the 4 as the returner scrambles, trying to take the last breaths of Marshall with him to get any amount of ground he can, takes it to the 6, then back to the 5 as Ryan Hanson comes in with 7 punts, starting the herd at the 1, at the 1, at the 1, at the 5, the 6, the 10, and the 11 in a single game. Absolutely brutal.